The season of motor racing action is slowly drawing to a close as every race series goes into hibernation for the winter and re-emerges to try and come back stronger next year. Unless you're Formula E of course, in which case hibernation comes in the European summer. For IMSA's swan song to 2021, we once again turn to the typical season finale at Road Atlanta, which shouldn't take much guessing as to where in the world this track is roughly located. I'll be here to give you what I hope will be a simple-ish guide to one of endurance racing's biggest challenges. The race was founded in 1998 by the person who was the then owner of Road Atlanta at the time, the late Don Panos, who, whilst had a very fetching career in the pharmaceutical industry, was a very appreciated figure in the world of motorsports, particularly endurance and sports car racing. The name Petit Le Mans pretty much infers what the event is trying to be, a Little Le Mans. The event's distance has changed over the years, with the 1998 to 2013 iterations of the event either running from 394 laps or 10 hours, whichever came first. However, since 2014 the event has resorted to just the 10-hour limit, which hopefully makes everything a bit clearer to the race fan. The first event in 1998 was run in the IMSA series, known back then as the Professional Sports Car Racing Championship. But then in 1999 the event was run for the newly formed American Le Mans series, which was founded by Don Panos. Ever since the event became an IMSA round in 2014 after the American Le Mans series and Grand Am series merged into one the same year, the event has also been a part of the world and European endurance racing scene, which is why we've had wins by Peugeot in this race, and even by the Rebellion racing team with the Toyota-engined Lola B1260. The event has been shortened twice in its history due to heavy rain, with 2015 producing a very shock winner, the GTLM Porsche, which was faster than the prototypes in the awful conditions. Needless to say, it also won its own class as well, albeit a BMW Z4 GTLM also took second overall. Right, let's have a look at the track. So, let's take a tour of the Road Atlanta circuit, which is going to be utilising, in my case, the BMW M8 GTE. Turn 1 is incredibly fast. For the prototypes, you might be flat out through there. You won't be in a GT car. This corner is a blind crest in which you then have to try and aim for an apex which you can't see, but it's a very nice corner all the same. Flows into a nice left-hander and then also into a nice right-hander, in which I missed the apex completely there. A slight left, which isn't really a corner, and so is the same for the right. Then go up third gear over the curbs, which you can use. There doesn't seem to be any track limits there, and if you can utilise any space you've got, then utilise it. A bit of a mini straight in which you go into a third gear corner and then you have to go back onto the brakes hard, and it might even be first gear for some cars into this very tight right-hander. Then it is a long straight. Do you want to read a book, listen to your favourite music, have a bit of jazz in the background? Who knows, but you can take a bit of time if you're by yourself in this straight. Have a very slight right hand kink and then a very sharp spike down the hill and then hard on the brakes as you come into the chicane, which has a nice flow to it, but don't get on the power too much, because even though you think you've got on the power, when you go over the rise, grip is at a minimum. And then you complete the lap with a flat out corner, which you might even be flat out in a GT car, if you get the line right. DPI is coming towards its conclusion as we head into a new era of sports car racing in 2023. Despite that though, this category has formed a very solid foundation point for IMSA, in which 4 manufacturers have competed in its time span: Acura, Cadillac, Mazda and Nissan. This is an ultra-competitive field, and if it produces anything like last year's race did, then we're in for quite the delicacy here. A class that has gained universal support due to its speed and relative cost effectiveness, LMP2 garnishes another competitive grid this year in which the class's growth has blossomed and looks set to grow even more next year. A new class was introduced to IMSA this season in the form of LMP3. When first introduced, some thought that Bedlam would be aplenty and could potentially be a disaster. As it turns out, it's been a great first year for the new class, which has seen the entries grow and has pleased an inordinate amount of drivers and team owners. It's sad, but it's true. GTLM in IMSA is no more. A car that has become almost on the verge of iconic will sing its last hurrah in this race. The category replacing GTLM, GTD Pro, will have an awful lot to try and do to get into the same reckoning as GTLM. Speaking of which, for vehicles which are the slowest of all the classes competing in IMSA, these GT3 based vehicles more than make up for in terms of competitiveness, quite possibly the most competitive of all the classes. Also, these cars aren't slow. I mean, let's just put it this way, it would probably lap your standard 1.6 litre hatchback before you even get to the final chicane. Anyway, time to see who's racing. Starting our smorgasbord of teams and drivers is Wayne Taylor Racing, who took ages to get accustomed to their Acura after winning their first race with the car at the first race of the season. Joining the regular drivers of Felipe Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor, who is related to Wayne, is IndyCar sensation Alexander Rossi. Chip Ganassi's return to the prototype ranks has gone very well so far, and with the news that they will be fielding a second Cadillac next year, Chip must be getting the right feelings. In what will be Kevin Magnussen's last race for the team after just 1 year, him and Renger van der Zande will be partnered with Scott Dixon. For Action Express Racing, they will be once again fielding 2 more entries, in which Felipe Nasr will start his final race for the team. We're not that far into the video, and the word final seems to be somewhat of a theme for this one. Joining Nasr and his teammate Pippo Durrani is a regular in the sports car scene, Mike Conway. Whilst in the 48 Cadillac, if you're a fan of NASCAR, then that number is rather synonymous with a certain former driver. Yes, along with getting his thrills in the IndyCar scene, Jimmy Johnson will share the 10 hours with Simon Pagenaud and Kamui Kobayashi. In its return year to the prototype ranks, Michael Shank's team has been given a slight tweak for this race. Joining Dane Cameron is 2 people who have 6 Indy 500 wins between them, Juan Pablo Montoya and Helio Castroneves. Handy having those sort of accolades, isn't it? With what will be Mazda's last race in the DPI category, they hope to send off the car with a win here. Shame really, as the car has gotten better and better and more reliable over the years, but hey, that's the choice they've made. Oliver Jarvis, Harry Tignall and Jonathan Bomarito will be the determined souls behind the wheel. In a crazy turn of events which somehow led JDC to a win in this year's Sebring 12 Hours, the team will hope for more of the same in Road Atlanta. Loic Duval, Tristan Vautier and Sébastien Bourdais will be the all-French trio hoping to win the French-inspired race. Now on to LMP2, and we begin with a powerhouse of the prototype ranks all over the world, United Autosports. The Zak Brown, yes, that Zak Brown, co-owned team will be finishing off their 3-race campaign in IMSA this year with Wayne Boyd, Jim Maguire and Guy Smith. A car that looks like it came straight out of a David Hockney collage, the colourful character, no pun intended, of the Texan car dealer Ben Keating for PR1 Mathiasen will bring along Mikael Jensen and Scott Huffaker for his quest to get the LMP2 victory. Win Autosport have debuted in IMSA this year and have been a positive surprise package, with Stephen Thomas getting better and better as the year has gone on. Thomas Merrill and Tristan Nunez will drive alongside him, with the latter replacing Nasr in the Action Express Cadillac next year. The team name might be longer than the names of all the team's drivers put together, yet John Ferrano, Gabriel Aubrey and James French will be looking to build upon the strong pace they've shown in all season, in which unfortunately a couple of big crashes in the big races have cost Tower Motorsport this season. Oh jeez, the name of this team's even longer than the previous one! Even so, having won this year's Daytona 24 Hours, Era Motorsport will come into this race with good confidence. Ryan Dial, Dwight Merriman and Carl Tilley, who's tried his hand at NASCAR this year, will look to get another IMSA Crown Jewel win. Over to LMP3, where we have 2 entries from Riley Motorsports. First we have Car 74, which is sponsored by 74 Ranch Resort. Seems somewhat ironic, but hey, numbers are symbolic to racing drivers, and if that's a good luck charm, then it's worth it. Gar Robinson, Scott Andrews and Felipe Fraga will drive the Ligier. Meanwhile, Car 91 seems to have also gone with a rather flamboyant design. Let's see if the old adage of, if it looks fast, then it will go fast, stands true for Jim Cox, Dylan Murray and Jerome Blakemolen. The second time United Autosports is running an LMP3 car in IMSA, but has a slightly different driver lineup to the one at Watkins Glen. Nicholas Cruton stays, but Tom Gamble and former Bentley Works driver Andy Merrick will be alongside him. Interesting fact about Merrick is that his last IMSA outing came in the Delta Wing. Core Autosport will want to expand on the success of winning the Sebring 12 Hours in what is the same driver lineup. John Bennett and George Kurtz will be joined by Colin Braun, whose racing portfolio extends to prototypes, GTs, NASCAR and Rallycross. Other than having 4 wheels, not much links all these motorsports at all. Andretti's attempted acquisition of the Sauber F1 team may have ended up like a soggy Swiss roll, yet in the world of IMSA, things are looking brilliant for what is the early stages of the team in this series. Son of the late John Andretti, Jarrett will be alongside a great talent in Oliver Askew and Australian GT star Josh Burden. After running LMP2 machinery in recent years, Performance Tech debuted in the LMP3 ranks with a rather inexperienced lineup. Dan Goldberg, Swedish Indy Lights driver Rasmus Lind and Malte Jakobsen, who's making his first ever race start in the US, will hope their first victory this season will arrive this time round. If you're craving for variety in terms of cars, well, you'll be glad to know that we have a few non-Ligier entries in this race. Win Autosport will be starting their second race this season in the LMP3 class with a Duqueine. Matthew Bell is the only one who stays in the lineup, with Naveen Rao and former British F3 driver Josh Skelton joining him. 47 Motorsports will be running car number 7, which is somewhat confusing as there isn't another car in the field which is running number 47. Either way, Mark Cavan will be joined by Rodrigo Fluka and Stefan Razadzinski. Nothing like going in at the deep end for Fast MD Racing, who are making their IMSA WeatherTech debut in this race. Yep, their first race of the season is a 10-hour onslaught, but still, the team's confident and they tested their Duqueine at Paul Ricard. James Vance, Todd Archer and Max Hanratty will be driving. Junior 3 Racing have far more experience at this level, with this being their second IMSA start. Although both the drivers who featured in that race won't be driving for them this time round, as instead it's Ari Below, Garrett Grist and former IndyCar driver Spencer Piggott. Onto the GTLM cars, and not only is it the last race for the class in IMSA, but will almost certainly be the last race for the BMW M8 GTEs. They may have come under some stick for all the jokes of how big it is, however, it has been successful in IMSA, winning the Crown Jewel races, so it will be definitely sad to see this car retired and most likely put in a museum somewhere. For their swan song, in Car 24 it's John Edwards, Augusto Farfus and Jesse Crone, whilst it's a case of the Phillips for Car 25 with Connor De Filippi, Philip Eng and Bruno Spengler behind the controls. Of course, the American contingent are going to be rooting for the hometown heroes in the Corvettes to complete a very successful last season in this category. However, these cars aren't going away, as not only are there plans for a full WEC GT program, but also the same car will be used in the GT3 Spec GTD category, except it will be detuned to make sure the cars are balanced. For car number 3, it will be Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor, who yes is related to Wayne Taylor from earlier, and Nicky Katzberg, whilst in the silver car number 4, it will be Tommy Milner, Nick Tandy and Alexander Sims. For WeatherTech Racing, Cooper McNeil will be for this race joined by Matt Campbell and Mathieu Jaminet in what is the full season car. Now I say that because for the first time, and of course in the same vein as last time, WeatherTech Racing will run a second car which will have an all-pro lineup. Now because this entry hasn't completed before, then the picture you're seeing will not be the livery used in this race. Well, I have to assume not. This could very well though be a contender in this class with Frederick Makovecki, Kevin Estra and Michael Christensen going all guns blazing to try and grab the victory. Finally, it's the turn of the GTD cars where we start with Wright Motorsports. Trent Inman has substituted for the injured Ryan Hardwick this season and will once again be joined by Patrick Long, who is in his last full-time race, and Jan Halen. No, he has no relation to the rock band. The only Aston Martin in the field, run by Heart of Racing, have been remarkably consistent all year, and they will be threats for this race as well. Roman DeAngelis, Ross Gunn and Ian James will be hoping to spread the love around the crew members at the end of the race. You can tell I don't have a career in comedy, can't you? After getting on top of some sponsorship issues midway through the season, Allegra Motorsports in the Mercedes will have Daniel Morad, for the first time this year Daniel Juncadella, and Michael de Quesada, who ironically will be racing in a boat at a very similar period as this race. Paul Miller Racing have always been consistently in the hunt for race wins since being in IMSA, and don't expect that to dramatically change in this race either. Once again, Brian Sellers, Madison Snow and Corey Lewis will drive one of the 2 Lamborghinis in this race. Team Hardpoint come into this race with several plans for next year. However, to cap off this season, the team will be the only one with a female driver on the grid, which will be a veteran of the sports car landscape, Catherine Legg. She will be joined by Rob Ferriol and Andrew Davis in the Porsche. Vassar Sullivan will once again run its Lexus RCFs in what is certainly one of the favourites going into this race, as the Toyota-owned brand look to try and claim one of the crown jewel races. The number 12 car though has not had a win all season, and its drivers of Frankie Montecalvo, Zach Veach and Robert McGuinness will look to try and change that. Meanwhile, the number 14 car will once again look to try and get the black and high visibility jacket green Lexus towards the front. Once again, its drivers are Jack Hawksworth, Aaron Tielitz and Kyle Kirkwood. Turner Motorsport and IMSA are a bit like fish and chips. They always seem to work so well together and you'd struggle to see one without the other. Bill Auberlen is an ever-present as well, and for the last time the BMW M6 GT3 will be raced in IMSA, as Turner will be running the new M4 GT3 from next season. With Bill is Robbie Foley and Aidan Reed. I don't know what all the fuss is about with Pfaff Motorsport, as they once again have been towards the front in all the races they've been in, and next year they plan on going in the GTD Pro class to show how far the team want to push themselves. As always, Zach Robichon, Lawrence Vantor and Lars Curtin make up the lineup. If I'm being honest, this year has been a bit of a struggle for Magnus and Archangel with their Acura. After racing Lamborghinis in previous years, they can't seem to get the right setup on the NSX for its drivers to truly flourish, but I hope that the Petit Le Mans will be the breakthrough that this rather colourful team need. Andy Lally, John Potter and Spence Pumpelly are the usual trio. The Austrian-based Grasser team have competed in every round of IMSA this year, but crashes and mechanical issues have plagued them. However, count them out at your peril, because if their success in the Daytona 24 Hours and in Europe show, they're pretty good. Misha Goikhberg, Frank Pereira and Michele Beretta will be ones to watch. A new team to IMSA, Gilbert Korthoff came with its Mercedes AMG in the second Watkins Glen race. The race was seen as a test event more than anything else, as apparently they didn't change anything on the car. A few rounds later and the team come into their first Crown Jewel event with Mike Skeen, Guy Cosmo and Stephen McAleer. HGP are experienced in GT racing, but when it comes to IMSA, not so much. And predictably, in their only race this year so far, the 24 Hours of Daytona, they won. So a lot to live up to in that case for Philip Ellis, Mara Angle and Russell Ward. For the only Audi in the field, NTE Sport have done 3 races this year in which a multitude of drivers have been used. Jaden Conwright, though, proved to be a revelation at the Watkins Glen 6 Hours, helping get the Audi to a 4th place finish in an incredibly competitive field. He'll be back again, along with Don Yout and Benjamin Heates. And the 43rd and last entry into this race are the debutants in Inception Racing, with for the first time a McLaren 720S being used this season. The team have raced pretty much all over the world non-stop, and the only reason seemingly they are racing this weekend is apparently they had nothing scheduled for November, so they thought they'd give it a crack. Brendan Arebe and Ben Barnicoat will have a late replacement in Frederick Schandorf, as Ollie Milroy is awaiting the birth of his child. Got his priorities in order then, it seems. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course the main thing being that this helped you in terms of understanding this race, and in turn has built up your anticipation for what is not only a terrific race and a crown jewel in the IMSA season, but also one of motorsport's biggest and most recognised events. After such a short period in its history, the reputation and prestige that this race has garnered is truly impressive, and hopefully this year's event is yet another epic encounter. If you liked any of the pictures so much that you want to have them as the background on your desktop on whatever device you might be watching this on, then the photo credits will be rolling along the bottom of the screen right now. However, until the next video, thank you very much for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.